So today we'll actually talk about the Landlord and Tenant Act, but this time we're going to talk about the tenant's responsibilities. Before we talked about what happened with the landlord, but this time we're going to talk about what we have to do as a tenant if we are living in somebody's place that we are paying rent for. So let's go over some of these things. So as a tenant, you pay for rent, right? You got your landlord, but you expect certain things to be taken care of in the place that you live. For example, for you have to take care of, for you as a tenant, you got to take care of the place that you're living in. And you have some other responsibilities that we got to take care of. So let's do that and let's talk about it. We knew that the landlord had to make sure that your place is up to spec and up to code for health violations. Regulations. We also would have to, as a landlord, get written permission for them to go into your house and stuff like that. But for the tenant, let's talk about that. So the landlord expects the tenant to keep his or her rental unit clean up to the standard that most people would consider ordinary, normal, or cleanliness. That's it. Nothing too difficult, right? So if you put your house and leave it as a pigsty with with garbage raised to the ceiling, that's unacceptable, right? But if you can live in it and do your thing and it's not too dirty, guess what? You're fine. Another thing that the landlord expects you to do is they expect you to be responsible for any damages that occur in your house, right? Any damages that occur in your property caused by the tenant or anybody that's actually as a guest in the house, whether it be deliberate or accidental. So if your buddy came over to your house and accidentally broke your Xbox, you would expect them to kind of help you fix it or replace it, right? So the same thing would happen with a house or an apartment. If the apartment looks a certain way and you go and you accidentally go and put a hole in the wall, guess what? You're on the hook for it. Now, another thing that you can't do that the landlord expects you to do is they expect you to not hold back any part of the rent, right? If you feel that some of the maintenance of the apartment is inadequate. So let's say that the landlord was supposed to fix something from last month, like the tap in your house, but it's just dripping. If you decide to hold back the money for that apartment building, what happens is you might be evicted for that. Okay. So that is the big thing that's very upsetting about it, right? Now, you got to understand, when people who are landlords are renting stuff to you, it is a business for them, right? That rent that they're getting from you helps to pay the mortgage and the taxes for the house or to the municipality or to the government. Okay. It's a very simple thing. You can't hold back the rent, because if you do, then the governments don't get their money and the banks don't get their money. And then, you know what? The banks will take over the house and kick you out eventually. But it's better for them to kick you out or evict you for not putting in the rent and getting a new tenant than allowing you to hold part of the rent. So you got to make sure you pay all the rent regardless. So remember how I told you that a landlord can kick you out if you don't pay your rent, right? Now, for you as a tenant, there are remedies for you. Now, the key idea is we have this thing called the Ontario Rental Housing Tribunal. Now, these people will make judgments as to whether you can hold your rent for things like the lack of maintenance or repair on your apartment, right? Now, that thing that they call abatement means you can actually hold back your rent until they actually fix that thing that you were having issues with. But you have to go and tell the Ontario Rental Housing Tribunal about your issue. Okay. And then if you can convince them that the maintenance of your house has been very bad, you'll be able to hold your rent back, and then they will force your landlord to go and make the maintenance or repairs in your house. Those are the 4 things that a tenant can do in the Landlord and Tenant Act, right? And those are your basic responsibilities. Now, just a quick reminder, all right? Now, for you as a tenant, you got to keep your rental unit clean. Number 2, you're responsible for any damage to the property caused by you or somebody else, right? You're not allowed to hold back any money, okay? Now, if you hold back any of your money, then that means you can be evicted, okay? And that is actually part of the Landlord-Tenant Act with respect to tenants. And the last thing, if there is an issue, remember, if you have an issue with maintenance of your house, right? Like they haven't fixed stuff in your house and it's making it hard for you to live in your house, you can apply to the Ontario Rental Housing Tribunal and they can look into your case, and then they can decide whether you can hold your money or not, right? Only after they give you permission to hold your rent could you do that, and that would force your landlord to go and make the maintenance that they said they should have done. Okay? And that's it. So your questions for the Landlord and Tenant Act are posted online. So I want you to work on 3.2, answer the questions, but make sure you refer to this Landlord and Tenant Act in order to get your work done.